All right. Hello, everybody. This is Preston Poulter with Pocket Jacks Comics. I'm joined by John,
Exact change only.
aka Zombie Cron, and an exact change only. So
Oh,
this
I
is
jumped the
again our
gun.
Wednesday night writers group, and don't worry about it. So this is our writers group. So we're going to have two people presenting pages this evening. One of them is going to be me, and then the other is going to be exact change only. And I will be presenting pages from Guinevere issue 3. So if you don't want that spoiled, if you're a fan of the Guinevere series and you just don't want to know what happens, then this is not the stream/video for you. So you should definitely click off in that case. And hello, Jake. All right. So who wants to go first?
Whatever you like.
All right, exact change. You want to go first?
I'll go first. It's fine.
You'll go first. Okay. All right. So let's see. How am I going to share this tab? Because he sent me a docx thing.
Is that on the? Is that on the channel?
Wait, you know what? Yeah, I don't need to share audio, so because these are just pages, so it doesn't matter if I share audio. So let me go to.
Yeah, it's on the Discord. Zombie.
Yeah, share screen.
Not the Guinevere one. Yours is yours on the Discord.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is on the Discord.
Both are.
Application window.
I can find the damn thing.
All right, and so my pages should be up there. Let me go to the top. I'm going to get rid of this formatting bar.
Exact change. Can you put a link to yours on the Discord again?
Yeah. Give me one moment.
Yeah. Are we going with yours first, Preston?
First.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me know if you got that. I just resent it.
Okay.
Understood. All right, just opening it now.
Alrighty.
Got that damn Ace Ventura song stuck in my head now.
Wait, which one?
Shikaka.
Oh, that one.
Why yo? Okay, got it. Elegy of the Brushfire by Exact Change Only.
Correct.
All right, so we're going to be going over your story. We'll allot it an hour. So it's 7:45. So what you're going to do is you're going to assign parts.
Okay.
I assume we're definitely going to need a narrator. And then if you want, all right, so yeah, I mean, you should probably help read it too. So we're going to have a narrator, and then we've got some parts to read. I see a Kevornius.
Kevornius.
And a Sophie.
Yeah.
Yes, and a Sophie and a Yank. The other characters we got.
That's it. There's a miscellaneous character in the background, but they don't have a name.
Okay. All right. So why don't I? It looks like Kevornius is our main character.
He is not. Sophie is actually the main.
Sophie's the main character. Okay.
Correct.
All right. So who wants to read Sophie? Yeah. Who wants to read Sophie? Then our main character.
I don't mind. Whoever. I'll do it.
Exact change. Assign parts. Give me a narrator. Give me.
All right, Preston. You can narrate, and Zombie, you can be Sophie.
And will you do the others?
That means you're doing everything else.
Yeah, I'll cover the other characters.
Okay. All right, let's get this started then. Page 1, 3 panels. Panel 1. Caravan of 4 fully loaded with supplies and civilians and escorted by columns of well-dressed elven soldiers sit idle on a narrow forest road. Among the congested wagon train is an ornate carriage. The dirt road, a glorified animal trail, is in a state of disrepair after the autumn rains. Dense forest stretches for miles, untamed frontier. In the background, disciplined ranks stand guard with muskets at the ready. Center of the panel, their laborious argues with their guide, Yanks. Is that Yank? How do I say it?
Yahakso.
Yahakso, native, demi-human, and scout. She looks annoyed. Her race bears a strong resemblance to the elves and humans in facial structure, but with key differences. She easily stands head and shoulders over the elves in her charge. A feline, tall, that pokes out from under her dark blue smock, and her loose-fitting smock drapes down to her bare thighs, and blouses out around her waist, with a linen belt securing her powder horn and tomahawk. A long musket leggings are secured to her loincloth like a garter belt, and hide boots. Stands with her hands on her hips, peering down at Cavornius. Captain Cavornius, adorned in Sharp's officer's dress, stands off against Yaksu, dressed in a well-fitted uniform matching his troops and Sharp tricorner hat atop his head. He wears a bluish-green overcoat with beige trim and gold piping on the shoulders and collar. Immaculate white linen underclothes showing signs of their rough journey. A saber hangs from his cross, his thigh. He too is frustrated and clearly at odds with Yaksu. Straddling atop his horse, he comes out to eye level with her.
I demand we stop for the night. The women and children are tired. Can't stop here. It's bad ground.
Panel 2. From the ornate carriage, a young elven woman named Sophie Fran exits. She's dressed in a form-fitting pink silk dress with wide fur collar that leaves her shoulders partially exposed. Her shoulder-length black hair stands in stark contrast when she calls to the captain.
What is the holdup? Are we lost?
Miss Fran, get back in your carriage. It's not safe here. Yeah, you want to rest here. We should keep moving.
Panel 3. Sophie ignores his order in his face. He looks flustered, anger at the loss of control.
Miss Fran, I must insist that you...
Insist all you want, Captain. You don't command a tribune of the Senate. Now tell me, why were you stopped?
Watch is bemused. I'm concerned for your well-being and that of the women and children. It would behoove us to rest for the evening.
Page 2, panel 1. Sophie turns her outrage onto Yang Su. The scout holds her ground unimpressed.
Can you speak, savage? Are we lost? Answer me. My uncle will hear about this.
We won't get anywhere like this. You should get back in your carriage.
You will not speak to me with such disrespect. I could bury you right now and no one would care. Do you want that?
Panel 2. The two women stare off. There is an intensity in the air. A blue aura wraps around Sophie's arm, and the ground below Yang Su ripples like water, but she doesn't fall. Sink.
That's a typo.
What's more, unfazed.
Miss Fran, that's enough. I must interject.
Cavornius, get us moving. Still looking at Yakso.
Page 3, panel 1. Later that evening, the caravan has managed to travel a fair distance and camp for the night in a glade. The wagons are circled around rows of neatly pitched tents. Small campfires illuminate the makeshift stronghold. Sentries stand guard at either end of the camp, watching the approaches down the road. Panel 2. Cavornius sits around the fire with his dinner, and in the background, rank-and-file soldiers stand in line at the mass tent, their wives serving the hungry.
Lieutenant number 1. Begging your pardon, sir, but the Tribune forgets herself. She has no right to address you so shamefully. I don't know what the Praetor's thinking by summoning her to the frontier. If it were up to me, she'd have never crossed the sea. In any case, I'll breathe easier when we're free of her and our gracious guide. Until then, we will see to our duties as loyal servants of the Republic.
3. Sophie is sitting alone in her carriage, tired but unable to sleep, and looking longingly out the barred windows at the night sky. Clouds of...
Another cage and another night away from home. Dad, I miss you.
Page 4. Yang Su sits in a tree, watching over the camp, cradling her musket. It starts to rain. Page 4. Overhead shot. Slumber has befallen. The pouring rain obscures the sentry's vision, including Yang Su's appearing for the trees. An orcish war party stealthily descends on the camp, spears and swords brandished. Page 6, 3 panels. Panel 1. Screams erupt from the camp as the orcs launch their attack. Soldiers rush to meet the sneak attack. Clashes and intense close quarters fighting. The rain her tree from her musket, dropping an orc. There are too many to stop, and the survivors rush past her. Yeah.
Damn it, I couldn't spell them coming. Clever bastards use the rain to cover their stink.
Panel 3. Sophie awakens at the sound of battle, panicked and confused. Orcs rush past her carriage window, and one peers inside and spots her. Sophie screams. Let's see. Did I oh, yeah, sorry. Page 7. Panel 1. Cavornius rallies his troops. The elves from ranks in a tight formation, readying their muskets and firing bayonets. Orcs rush them in ad hoc waves, some in the background dragging away defenseless women and children.
First rank, make ready, take aim, fire.
Panel 2. The first rank of elves let loose a volley of scalding lead and a brilliant plume of smoke. Orcs fall in droves, but more flood in. Rushing over their dead and wounded, the second elven rank prepare to fire. Panel 3. Sophie falls back out of her carriage. The orcs rip at the bars on windows with malicious intent, bending the metal with ease. Mud behind her, an orc rushes in to grab her. In the distance, Yang Su looks over her shoulder, seeing the girl in peril. Panel 4. Yang Su takes aim and shoots the orc close. The girl looks dumbfounded as the orc crashes to the ground. Blood splashes across her face. Panel 5. Sophie is stunned in fear. The first orc, having rounded the carriage, approaches. Yang Su leaps from her tree. Seeing Sophie is well behind orcish lines. The feline scout reloads her musket on the move.
Damn it, kid. Get up.
Page 8, 3 panels. Panel 1, paralyzed in fear, Sophie watches as Yang Su jumps over her. The cat woman kneels, shooting the other orc.
We must go. Get up.
Panel 2, Yang Su takes Sophie by the hand, leading her into the forest, being pursued by orcs. Panel 3, from behind the line of soldiers, Cavornia sees 2 women escape into the woods. Page 9, 4 panels. Panel 1, the women don't make it far before stopping at a cliff overlooking a river. The orcs not far behind them. Yang Su. Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Jump.
I can't.
Now.
Page 2. Yang Su pushes Sophie, sending her tumbling down the river. Yang Su turns, drawing her tomahawk to face off against the orcs, her expression pathetic. Panel 4. Sophie struggles against the water, the fast current dragging her away. Page 10, 3 panels. Panel 1. Sometime later, the sun has risen and the rain subsided. Sophie lays face down in a sandy bank. Panel 2. Sophie awakens, disoriented.
Where am I?
Sophie. Panel 3. She stands up, her clothes soaked, her possessions gone, her arrogance and pride stripped away. Lost and alone, Sophie faces the untamed wilderness before her. And that is what we have for today.
Cool.
All right, Zombie, you want to start us off?
If you like, sure. I think given that it's a cat girl or cat woman, you should just call it a cat woman and not a demi-human, for starters.
Yeah.
Because that's just getting lost in the weeds of role-playing games and war games.
Right.
Like it's a demi-human subtype cat girl kind of thing.
Little too D&D.
If it's even D&D. But certainly I think for an artist, they may not get what a demi-human or whatever is, but they'll get what a cat girl or a cat woman is.
Gotcha.
And I think for the orcs using the rain to mask their scent, it would be nice to put earlier dialogue in. I mean, I know this is an early draft, big deal, but put a bit of earlier dialogue in the same way they used to in Westerns where it's cowboys versus Indians or 7 Years' War type era, saying that the orcs can't be that big a threat. They're an unintelligent race at the best of times. And then have somebody say, well, it's your first tour, but they're cunning. And then just besides, we're safe. We've got a cat girl, whatever you want to call it. We've got a cat woman with us. They can smell XYZ at 100 leagues.
Oh, that's good.
Except when it rains, and then have a panel of a gathering thundercloud. So you've got a bit of Chekhov's gun. You've got foreshadowing. I would suggest. That's all.
Yeah. Any feedback is good feedback.
So
Interesting.
I like the world. We've got kind of a combination of. I mean, it's basically Lewis and Clark with orcs, as best I can tell.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely
Yeah.
American frontier, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, it feels American frontier with orcs, which is cool.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
so we've got that's a neat world, and you've got it in pages and panels. So I know you're new to doing things in comic script format. So
Right.
you're doing okay there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and we got characters on kind of a nice merry jaunt that is interrupted by evil orcs. So it's,
Right. Yeah.
it's fairly engaging. I mean, we get into action pretty quickly. So all in all, it's certainly hitting a lot of notes there. All right, now in terms of conflict, so I only see one being presented, and I don't know if you've heard me before, but I'm always going to talk about conflict in your story. So I only see one being presented, and that seems to be the party versus the orcs.
Yes. I was kind of going for a three-way power struggle between the captain of the company of soldiers, the scout, and what she thinks they should do, and then Sophie and her status as a tribune. So they're three people of relative equal rank, and they're not really agreeing on what they need to be doing. So I was going for something like that. Obviously, I need to work on that a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah, because right now I'm mainly reading it as just the overt conflict seems like the main conflict. And I mean, the problem with that is I think we know how that conflict's going to resolve.
Right.
We already know they're going to get away. And, the orcs are going to be like, oh, those dastardly humans and cat people, we'll get them next time. So, like this encounter needs to be showcasing something more.
Right.
So you had a good idea that we need to struggle between these these characters, much like in the movie Alien, when we're bringing Commander Kane back to the ship, and then like open the door, and Ripley's like, no, we're not opening the door because of quarantine protocol. Like, we have a real conflict there, and there are stakes involved, and it's very interesting, and we the audience isn't quite sure which way it's going to go, and at the time, and this is why the conflict is cool, we're thinking with Dallas, like, open the door, bitch. But later on, we're like, why did you open the door? Right? So it's cool that way. So,
it's a nice little subversion of expectations. And then, to learn later that the guy who opened the door was an android the whole time, and he wanted this to happen. So
and so that's really cool, is where you've got, just in that one little scene, which at the time plays out in the mind of the audience one way, but when you look back on it, there's really so many other things going on there. So that's what we should aspire to. So here, I think there needs to be more personality dynamics between Cavornius, Sophie, and Yang Su.
Yeah.
Also, what was the reason for it being a bad place to camp?
So I adapted this. I'm working in prose right now, but I adapted it so I could present it on the show. In my original...
Which I appreciate.
Oh, no problem. Didn't want to give you guys wall of text to read, and I appreciate the time on. But in my original draft, it had been kind of more of a hilly, like mountainous area. So the road was a little bit more precarious, and there was just high ground in one direction, then a swamp on the other. It was just a natural choke point, just a really bad spot to stop for the night. And I could have translated that a little bit more effectively in this, but
and where are they going? Is there any urgency for this trip, or?
Yes. They are going to Sophie's uncle. He's the governor, just for lack of a better term right now, of an elven expedition into the New World. You mentioned 7 Years' War. This is very much an 18th century kind of conflict. They're using flintlock muskets and all that fun stuff. But this supply convoy is traveling from the port to the front lines to make sure that the army on the march is being supplied. And Sophie has been summoned to her uncle. There's a bit of world building I was doing where, like, there are natural born mages in Elven society, and they are indebted to the state because of their abilities. So they have to serve some capacity to the state. And Sophie is one of them. So is her uncle. And there's a little intrigue plot I was going for at some point where there's going to be a conflict between them. Without getting into too much to it, the urgency is Sophie needs to get to her uncle.
Understand. Now, my question, and it comes from screenplay as well as from comics, because every page in a script in either of those formats has to be paid for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you've got a certain budget, and so you want to make every page count. So if I'm your editor and I'm going to ask, okay, so we've got to see one way to do this, like if we were pressed for time, would be we could just cut the entire scene, like all 10 pages. We could just cut it, and then they arrive at wherever they're supposed to be arriving, and the dialogue could be, hey, we got ambushed by orcs. Yeah, well, I told you to do this. And then we're having the conflict being the personalities involved as
Instead
opposed to
the action where we know the characters are going to get away.
Right. And like one you're kind of talking instead of not showing, but if we're going to have it be playing out, I think it needs to be compelling. Like, whenever I'm looking over things, I'm always like, could I just cut this scene and just use some dialogue later on in its place? Because I don't want to put up scenes that people know how they're going to go.
Right.
The other thing is is this cat girl going to come back or not?
Yes. Yeah. She's the one of the supporting characters. At some point in my other draft, she gets deputized by Sophie's uncle. So there'll be like a little loyalty kind of conflict there between, is she loyal to her people now, or is she loyal to this new entity that has given her this status? So
why don't you have her killed in the escape and then have a different cat girl be that character? Because that way the assumed heroic Mohawk Indian guide who's going to rescue the princess dies, and have them die fairly unexpectedly, and then she meets their people, a different one protects her, and then you have the ambiguity of, well, you got my sister or whatever killed protecting you already. You see what I mean? Maybe do that. Yeah. Just think about it. Just to change it up so that it isn't so inevitable that Hawkeye, the Mohawk, is going to live alongside the uppity princess. That kind of thing.
I like that.
Because a lot of those Indian tribes that sided with one or other of the European powers were much more loyal to the European powers than the Europeans were to them sometimes. And quite often there were family tensions where somebody died, and then it's like, well, do you hold any ill will against the crown because your brother died in service? And then the Indians are sort of non-committal and kind of,
it leaves you questioning where do they really stand.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say is from a TV story point of view, Planet of the Apes TV show, that was very short-lived, but lots of them do it. The Fugitive, with the detective chasing the hero. If you have an orc protagonist as well, or an antagonist as well as these characters, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Personify the orcs and don't necessarily make him or her ridiculously evil.
Right. Yeah, that would be another way. Is if we had kind of had more stake in the orcs, because right now the orcs are total NPCs.
Yeah, they're generic stock bad guys the way they're presented here.
Are they green? Are they green orcs or more human orcs, or pig faces, or what?
I had them more of the cliche pig face, big green orc. In my draft for my pros, there's a section that I just couldn't fit into this, where one of the orcs from that war party is also trying to find Sophie afterward. And there's kind of like a little race between the elves trying to find her, the guide trying to find her, and then the orc trying to find her.
So you've got an orc antagonist or protagonist. He needs to appear, or she needs to appear here, possibly even in a little scene with the other, like an orc offsider trying to chicken shit out, saying, spears versus muskets, muskets always win. And then he can introduce the except when it rains, brother, except when it rains.
Yeah, and I'd actually done something kind of like that. The warband leader, I just couldn't quite fit him in here. With the panels, I'm not used to this format, but this was fun.
Preston can help you.
But press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's all right. So let me go over this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of page by page. So let me do this again. Let me pull this up. Notification Twitter. There it is. All right. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go share screen again. And I'm just gonna one page at a time.
Okay.
All right. Share. Okay. So now this is comic format, so it's a little different than screenplay format. In screenplay format, particularly, I mean, when you get into screenplay format, you have to go, well, is it a spec script or is it a shooting script? Because those two will look different. But spec is kind of the predominant format, which means you're writing it in the hopes that a studio will like it and give you money, kind of thing. Right. Whereas a shooting script means the movie's already been, agreed upon, and more meat in the script about angles and whatnot. And
practicalities.
Practicalities and camera direction, all that crap. So, but spec scripts, they're supposed to look nice and tidy and clean, and they're basically supposed to read really well off the page, so that people can see the movie in their minds and go, "Wow, this would be great. We should totally give that guy a bunch of money." So one of the things that people do in spec scripts is they try and keep the number of lines in a paragraph down to like 4 or less, so that you don't see like the big wall of text, because some people find that a bit off-putting. But so let me go through this real quick. All right, supply caravan, 4 fully loaded supplies, affiliated by column. Okay, well dressed. Because you do have a lot of information here. Right, just wagons, okay, the dirt road, a glorified animal trails in the state of this. Wow, you got a lot of detail. It came from a novel, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think you maybe have like too much information for the for your penciler to draw. All right, because I'm trying to make because we got so 4 stretches for miles on an unnamed frontier. It's like, for me, I'm going to be like, where is your angle?
Oh yeah, like where would the camera be?
Yeah, like where's the camera being that the penciler is going to draw from? Because like we could be kind of close on these characters. This could be an aerial shot, or like with all this detail, really, like if I'm just the penciler, and you're handing me this page, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to make the characters kind of small and somewhat distant, so that I can show the trails and like the big forest and like this big
just expansive
kind of
wilderness,
sylvan expanse.
Yeah.
And maybe you want that, maybe you don't, but I would like to see in here like kind of a little more guide to the penciler in terms of what it is you want to see.
Okay.
Also keep in mind, and this is where screenplay differ. In screenplay, your action lines can convey actions. Someone, closes the door and walks in. Whereas in a comic, they can only draw a still. There can't be, like action-y lines necessarily. Like raises the gun to her shoulder and fire. It needs to be, like having shouldered the gun takes. I have a problem with that myself, because I'm just kind of used to it. But
right,
do keep that in mind. I'd say.
I think in this one, if it does end up being a comic or illustrated in some way, you've got to remember that the forest primeval still existed in America, or this equivalent of it then. So I think you need to give at least one panel or splash page over to the actual wilderness that they're in, especially if it's going to be one of the opponents or obstacles for her, like she wakes up in the middle of it.
And yeah, that was... Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, that's all. That's fine.
And like Preston was saying a minute ago, like an overhead establishing shot, that was kind of what I was going for.
Okay.
Like a scenic shot, so people can see, oh, they're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Pretty much. Or what is essentially the middle of nowhere.
There's Wally Wood's 22 panels that always work, an equivalent. I'll put the link in the chat. for comics. It's just it's quite stunning. I know pretty much every artist has seen it, but maybe other people haven't. And I found writing novels when I did that full time. I found it quite useful even for novels, to be honest.
Okay.
Because sometimes if a chapter's getting boring, it's nice to sort of think of a different way of describing it or looking at it, revisualize it, kind of thing. So,
and what this
put a
is?
link.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I just put the link in the chat anyway.
Of course, yeah.
All right, so
Here.
so page 2, panel 1. All right, so we got Sophie turns her outrage onto Yang. All right, so let's see what she was so outraged about. Sophie says, let's see. Insist all you want, Captain. You won't command a tribune of the Senate. Now tell me why we stopped. So Sophie's being upset that the caravan has stopped here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get to page 2, and Sophie turns her outrage towards Yaksu. The scout holds her ground unimpressed. Okay, and then she's calling him a savage, and Yaksu's like piss off, and so there's kind of a generalized bickering, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of standoffishness between the two. They don't like each other.
Yes. Right. Yes. There's kind of yes, and I guess that's so that's good because I'm perceiving what it was you sought to, but we've got these people kind of standing around bickering, and like if I had to recount, just like really like like for instance the smug lady from SWC isn't here yet, but he was like, okay, what did I miss? I'd be like, okay, so we got 4 guys who are bickering as they go into a forest. They get attacked by orcs. They kill some of them, and then they end up jumping in a river to get away. And that's, I mean, did I miss anything, or is
that's essentially what happens. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And like I feel like more needs to go on in 10 comic pages.
I gotcha. Yeah. Just cut down the fat and elaborate on what needs to be elaborated on.
Right.
Bring the orcs in, have the orcs point out that all of these people are intruders, that kind of thing.
Yeah, switch it to their point of view. That'd be
well, at least a different point of view. And also the cat race. Are they another local tribe equivalent or what?
Yeah, like you mentioned the Mohawk. That was a pretty big inspiration for them and the Algonquin.
Right.
So
well, you need to bring that out then, so that it's not just a random non-human with superpowers.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's what I would do. Try and like make every page compelling and make every page fight for its own existence. Go, does this page need to be here? There's no, then cut it. Just get rid of it. Yeah. So like
the vicious cycle.
Yeah, and novels, you probably don't need to do that. Like novels, I think can take their damn time, and I don't like. God, I think I stopped reading Anne Rice. Like I really like to Interview with a Vampire and stuff, but then you start to get to like book 3 or book 4. Someone enters a room, and the description of the room goes on for like 3 or 4 pages. I'm like I don't have time for that.
That's an issue I've had with reading other novels is they can get really wordy, and I don't like that when I'm reading books. So I've been trying to avoid that in my own work, and I've been kind of approaching it with a less is more mentality. Doing some of the things you guys have brought up here. I obviously need a bit more practice in it, but
sure, yeah, of course. It is a skill.
Yes,
it takes time.
But I hate walls of text. I hate overly elaborate paragraphs about a guy eating breakfast. Who cares about that stuff? Get to the meat of the story. So
it was interesting. Somebody I follow on Twitter put up a very recent Captain America page. Terrible, of course, awful, and something from the late 70s or early 80s. Same character, Captain America, about the internment of the Japanese Americans, the actual American citizens of Japanese race. And he was criticizing just the content and the lack of following old continuity. But what I pointed out to him was the older comic panels get through a shit ton more story really quickly with very dramatic gestures, which of course now they consider to be old hat. But really, it's extremely talentless for a comic to literally look like a storyboard of a slice of life movie where you see people from the waist up or walking up a flight of stairs and they're having this very dramatic conversation and their faces are expressionless masks.
Yeah.
There's decompression and there's just absolute car crash, complete slowness and languor. And this, for example, that you've written, I've been looking at old Killraven comics for storyboard purposes just to see how they did those pages. And that had jungle, had incredible numbers of battles against the Martians and their operatives with Killraven and the heroes. But even in that 70s very wordy comic, they really got to stuff fast. I mean, they really did. And then same with the Planet of the Apes black and white magazine. If they really wanted to go over the top, which they did sometimes with poetry or whatever, they'd do a beautiful splash page showing the jungle or some kind of threat or something really impressive. And then they just have quite a long panel on that page. So some of this stuff, you could do that. You could get away, I think, with doing that once in an issue of this comic, like one full page panel with a big box introducing it or flashing back or in the form of a letter quoted on the page to set the world up. But then I just wouldn't bother again. I just make people work for it while they're reading it to find out what's going on.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right.
Because I don't think
you've been waiting patiently over there.
Just one thing though, Preston. Before you ask McCheese,
sure, yeah.
Preston, your comics, you don't really do that though, do you? You don't do the big page with the exposition. I haven't seen so far, anyway.
Well, friend, here I'll show you. I guess as close as I might have gotten to that. Now let me see. Like now that I'm live, my browser's messing up. Let me see if I can pull it up for you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, that's working so far. So what? And this one, what the hell happened here? That's weird. Okay. Huh. Okay, so here, let me go here. Screen. So, all right. So this is Guinevere issue 2, which we just did the Kickstarter for, and that one went okay. And then
there we go.
We're about to launch the main issue for start of next month. So, but we got page 1, panel 1. Guinevere on the streets of New York, picking up where we left off in issue 1. Guinevere stands on the streets, and she's taking off the amulet. And Guinevere thinking, I have to take this thing off. It keeps showing me terrible things. I swear there's a pair of devils taking that boy to the courthouse. And panel 2, Guinevere, the cops, that teenager. Wow, that's a crazy noise. A pair of uniformed NYPD, one black, one white, drag along a black teenage boy, Solomon, upwards towards the entrance of the courthouse. There are handcuffs on his wrist. Guinevere, quietly. Oh. Page, panel 3, similar frame. The officers turn to look at her as she approaches. They have serious expressions, and the handcuffed teen looks to her with a pleading look in his eyes. Guinevere, pardon me, officers, where are you taking this man? Police business, ma'am. This man is due in court. Guinevere, court? But it's 4 p.m. I guess she's never heard in Black Cop, and I guess she's never heard of Night Court, White Cop. All the proceedings are open to the public if you want to watch. Page 2, interior halls of the New York Criminal Courthouse. Guinevere follows along as the officers lead the handcuffed teen towards the courthouse. The courthouse is filled with a lot of defendants, many black and Hispanic, and some well-dressed attorneys. So I asked for a lawyer. I ain't seen one. Black Cop, we notified the public defender's office. They're sending someone down. And then panel 2, Guinevere's face shows her concern. Behind her, a wall of well-dressed but tough mafia enforcer type in defense walks with his high-end defense attorney Timothy Crowley, who, by the way, was a backer. So from issue 1, a backer paid enough money to be Timothy Crowley. Was then being being congratulated for getting the guy off. And it says, well, congratulations again on your not guilty verdict in Mafia. That was your victory. All I did was sit there. That was all you. The way you got that evidence thrown out, you're worth every penny the Don pays you. Panel 2, inset, Guinevere's face. She arcs an eyebrow as she hears the Mafia Don's words, which she partially intruded in her frame. Guinevere thinking, time to do a good deed. What on earth is that noise?
Is that a pencil sharpener?
Oh, okay, got it. Guinevere's back.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Guinevere stands confidently as she addresses the men. She has removed her jean jacket, which is draped over her right hand, which glows a subtle blue as she draws the arcane powers. The men look to her as she seems to feel the front. Her front's not too bad either. Guinevere, pardon me, gentlemen, but I need to speak with an attorney. Crowley, well, I'm an attorney. What seems to be the matter? Then page 3, splash page, pin up bust of Guinevere. Her magic relies if influencing people's emotions, so the artwork should reflect an idealized and unrealistic depiction. The frame should be just below her breasts, which look ready to leap out from her tank top. Her jean jacket. What on earth is going on? I guess it's a cat. A jean jacket is draped over her right arm, the hand of which continues to draw on magical powers. The arm constitutes the lower part of the frame. Let's see. Her hand should be positioned to either side of her breast as though she's about to push them together. Her face is radiant and gorgeous. No man can deny this woman nothing. And then the dialogue was just, I was wondering if you might take a case pro bono. So that page 3 used to be a whole like scene with her like talking to them and trying to convince them to do stuff. But I found like I didn't need it. Like, you know, if we just show, boom, she's there, she's gorgeous, she's doing some magic, and then the next page she's walking out of the courtroom, and Solomon is like, wow, I can't believe you just got this attorney to jump on the case like that. Like we, the audience, know what happened.
Yeah, it says the same thing.
Right. So going back to what I was telling you, like if you can cut out, pages and just go with some expository dialogue, because we, the audience, already know what's going on and are already kind of prepared for that leap, then I would encourage that. Who's got all that background noise?
Not I.
Not me.
Okay. Must be Mecha McShoes.
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
It's all good. It happens.
So I'm hearing cats and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's a wild time over here.
Okay.
Hey, I just got here. I'm looking over it real quick. If I could throw a cent or two in.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. Because I'm still pulling up my script. So go ahead.
Maybe panel 1. If I was an artist, I saw panel 1 and I got it from you, I would punch myself in the face. There's just so much in there. But how the hell would I draw all this? I know Preston and others hit on that already. I would say maybe instead of making that a panel, just make that like an overview of what you're trying to do through the whole scene.
Gotcha.
You can throw all this detail in for the artist to consider and then cut it down to exactly what he needs to say. The other thing I noticed is your first 2 names on here, Cavornius and Yaku.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's part of your world building or not. I'm
going to go grab some water. Okay, go ahead.
Ugly words to say. Cavornius.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that.
I don't know.
No, you're right. I did that on purpose. I wanted them to sound bad, disgusting. There's a reason for that. That was intentional.
World building too.
Yes.
Part of like language and custom and that kind of thing.
Right. One, I was kind of going for I wanted Cavornius to sound sort of almost Latin, Roman-esque. It's not the final name, but it's a placeholder for right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty wild, man.
Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty early on in the drafting process, and yeah, it's by design. They're supposed to sound not great.
Yeah, and then you get to the very last page is only 3 panels, and it's really simple. And I really like how you pared it down and stuff compared to the beginning of it, which is filled with all this detail and stuff. It's really simple. I think you kind of started hitting your stride right there on that last page.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a learning experience. It kind of helped me kind of visualized what I was wanting to do and gave me a new way of looking at what I'm trying to do. So, yeah, thank you.
Very cool.
All right. I guess we can start. I mean, we were waiting on the SWC guy, but he's. I don't know. I guess he gets here when he gets here. So
I'm just going to grab a coffee.
I guess we'll wait here for a bit while we're taking potty breaks. Hello, Lorenzo.
Oh yeah.
So I know that these writers might not be the most riveting thing to watch for an audience, but for writers, they should kind of like it. Did you watch that episode of Script Notes, or at least listen to the little segment I sent you? By the way,
me?
Exact change. Yes.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
All right. So in our little writers group Discord, I posted a 3-page challenge, and then there was the Script Notes podcast, which I linked you to, where they went over those 3 pages. I don't know if that helped or not.
I had it, and I was at work when you guys sent that, and I had forgotten about that.
Okay.
You work? My goodness.
Right?
Stuff helps.
I got it bookmarked, but that the answer is still no. I have not listened to it yet.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'd like to ask everybody a question about the Expendables graphic novel, Grown.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
That is an script writing.
Okay.
Comic writing. It's obviously an adaptation of an IP, and the IP it's adapted from is on the level of a cartoon for 75-year-old men. So it's got fantasy elements, and as far as I know, the films didn't. So personally, I just think it's storyboards that have had Sylvester Stallone drawn on top of them for something else, it looks like. But it seems really off the wall. Can you adapt? Because I've licensed and adapted things myself in the past, and I have an opinion on this. Do you think it's possible to adapt something from genre A, film from genre A, into genre B successfully? Ever?
I mean, it would depend on the genre, right? Like Alien is a horror movie, and Aliens is basically an action movie. So, but those are still great movies. But I don't know.
Fast and Furious.
But is that an adaptation? Do you think that Aliens is such a dramatic departure from the first film that it would count as an adaptation? I meant more into comics, though, like Evil Dead and Ash were both adapted into comics separately and then together. So there was a comic adaptation which used Deadites and Evil Dead IP, and then Ash as a character became a kind of wandering bishop through Marvel Comics and Dynamite and Christ alone knows who else as a character. And I just noticed reading them how dramatically different the adaptations were, because in almost all cases they weren't an adaptation of the Ash character at all. In fact, they were really it was really just like Bruce Campbell. It wasn't really Ash. Ash was not Bruce Campbell. They were very similar, but in some ways, but it's not the same character. And the Expendables, to me, seems like a very uneasy fit to Dante's Inferno, D&D monster. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
it's definitely awkward.
Yeah, I don't like the idea. I just don't. I mean, look, I was a Ronda Rousey fan. Although not enough to follow her to the WWE, but when she was in Expendables 2, I'm like, okay, I guess I will go watch Expendables 2. So without seeing 1 or really particularly caring about 3, I went and watched Expendables 2, and I like, even with her, I'm like, this movie sucks.
Well, that was the one that had the Chuck Norris cameo too.
I think so. And
the joke on the rattlesnake.
I'm not such a action fanboy that I'm just going to get super excited. Look, Arnold Schwarzenegger, an aging Arnold Schwarzenegger is on screen. Like, you got to give me something to go off of. And I think the problem with the Expendables in general is there are just too many people, like by design. and
And none of
they're
us
basically
die.
trying. And so you just end up with like this team versus a lot of generic bad guys who they will at least like, and I think in like the Expendables too, like the bad guy was Mel Gibson or something, but so they at least gave like an interesting personality to the villain. But I think there are just too many characters overall, and the conflict too generic. So now if it's the Expendables blowing up a bunch of orcs, I mean, or a bunch of demons, I don't care. It doesn't
I mean,
interest me.
there's a subtext to the films about these are all, you're going to see these people who are stars, and in some cases, in a lot of their films, didn't even really act. You were watching Schwarzenegger, you weren't watching a particular character, and
Right.
and that's a subtext. It's a meta thing within the films, and I can't see any element of that at all in the comic pages shown. So to me, it just seems like this is not the way to adapt an IP into a different genre. But is it possible to?
I think it's possible.
Sure.
The Expendables, I don't know. I think the entire Expendables franchise was ill-conceived at best. And
it's dead now anyway.
Yeah, it's. I think I saw somebody say it's 5 years too late for this to matter. I don't see this going anywhere.
Well, the fact that it's a comic book means it doesn't matter.
They should.
I'm sorry,
But
not
yeah.
to disparage anyone making comics.
No, you're good.
You take this is like going from the major leagues to the minor leagues.
It's definitely a step down. You're narrowing down your audience. I mean, how many people buy comic books? People will go see a movie, or people will go box and
It
rent
is a way to keep a script alive, though. So you turn it into a comic book, you put a script on life support, and you've got free storyboards and pitch documents. And then,
it's market research at best.
In years to come, you can say, well, the script's still around, it's on its 8th revision, and by the way, this graphic novel will kind of take you through it.
The Pee-wee stuff.
It just seems bizarre, though, to have, because I mean, when it was first announced, and I saw that it was in Hell, and then it was actually, in my opinion, a rip-off of that guy's Vikings in Hell trying to get their way to Valhalla idea, which is an indie comic book he's had around for a while. So I haven't heard of this, and they say it's been going for months, but that guy's been going for years, and he's a novelist. So, I've had people rip my stuff off too and claim that I was the plagiarist. I don't cop that shit. But leaving that to one side, I thought originally it might be more like that, like the Expendables were going to try and meet Odin, or do you know what I mean? Like it's basically, yeah, you're dead, but there's different ways of spending eternity, and you can get to somewhere where at least your old buddies will be there too, as opposed to the hellscape where you are now. But it really, honestly, just looks like splash page after splash page of rip-offs of Cadillacs and dinosaurs, and then you've got the Valkyries and the Stuka dive bomber.
It looks like an action movie as conceived by like a 12-year-old. And then there'll be dinosaurs, or 2 bombers, and we'll have a battleship. I'm like,
well, that sounds awesome. I think this whole comic is uninspired at best, and not to sound like a snob or anything. This is a bad idea.
Do elephants and fighter planes go to hell too?
Yeah. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
See, that's the thing, though. You see, that's what makes me think it was storyboards and splash pages for a pitch, because it's the kind of stuff, if you've got to sell the sizzle, if you can't use a name to do it, or a dealing place to do it, that's the kind of crazy-ass stuff that you throw across the table and show people on a big board saying, like, look at this. Tits, dinosaurs, also Nazis.
Wasn't there like a Netflix movie with all that in it?
Yes, there was. 2 of them. Iron Sky.
This feels like more than anything is the Jurassic Park 4 that never came around, where they were going to splice humans and dinosaurs together, and
that's the best idea ever.
Shoot people with machine guns.
A little thing called Commandosaurs. Knock that on the head, though, because that's already been done.
Oh, damn!
It's a mess.
That's gold.
And to me, I mean, hell needs to be a special place. If we make it just any old battlefield where you can take a tank and blow up some bad guys, well, then
It's not
well,
so
it's
scary.
not hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you can actively confront the existential crisis, it ceases to be an existential crisis.
Yeah, when you can blow up Satan with a bazooka, well, then
You're playing Doom.
Have any of you ever heard of Philip Jose Farmer's Riverworld series?
No.
I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it, but that sounds very familiar.
So space aliens of great power, plot device, resurrect all of the dead of Earth from
That's a lot of people.
between certain years, and that obviously includes all the historical figures, and they all live up and down this river on this alien planet, a gigantic river. So they come back from the dead naked, and then they have to re-equip themselves using the stuff that these, what we now call 3D printers, create for them. And this is like that, because you had like Julius Caesar, and he begins to collect together troops, and you have Hermann Goering, and he tries to create a flying circus with primitive airplanes and so on. So you have these different groups of historical warlords fighting each other. And this really does look like that, with more fantasy elements.
That sounds a lot like I'm a bit of a weeb. I watch anime. I don't know if you could tell. There's a show out there called Drifters, where it's kind of like that, where ancient or even just historical figures are reborn in a alternate fantasy world, and they're doing exactly what you said there. They're sticking to their archetypes, but they're introducing fantasy elements. Not an alien world in that show, but it's very similar to the premise.
But so, Preston, you've probably got the most comic book experience in recent years out of any of us. Do you think it's possible to adapt across a genre successfully or not? You think it could be done?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like, look, if you handed me the thing, like now we're going to, and I watched Expendables 2, but I can't tell you what any of the characters were named. They were all just generic shoot 'em up thing. But if we take the captain, the Sylvester Stallone character, and I'm like, all right, he's going to hell. Well, now it kind of has to become a bit more Spawn-esque, or a bit more about his personal struggle and his personal demons and all the people he's killed and all the wrong decisions he's made, because that's what hell's about. And now it has horror based, and you can certainly do that. I
would have thought. I mean, probably the licensing would prevent it, but I would have thought the number one thing that would happen if you go to hell from an action franchise, the people you've already blown up would be there, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
For round 2.
Exactly.
You're starting to think logically. That would be an interesting story to tell, of him having to question whether he's done the right thing. Right.
Well, not just that, but a guy you barely beat, perhaps, with luck, with action film.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
And he's had time to stew on it.
And he's in hell.
Right.
Yeah.
So he can team up with all sorts of other bad people. I don't know.
And then it might be interesting and somewhat of a, it could be kind of a cool reinterpretation where you don't even need too many hellscapes. Because I think if it's just one nonstop hellscape, then it loses its impact. But if instead we're really just kind of doing a reinterpretation of it, where what happened in Expendables 2, they're going up against the Mel Gibson bad guy because you're both dead and you're both in hell. So you're kind of going along the same way, but now things are going dramatically differently, because really this is just your personal hell, and maybe none of this exists at all, but it's really just kind of your spiritual nightmare, if you will. Kind of like that X-Files episode where the whole thing was just a hallucination because Mulder and Scully had fallen into the fungus pit.
Yep, one of my favorites.
That was a great one, right?
That was good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess it's been basically an hour. So that was a long shower. We're going to go ahead and get started on my pages, I guess. Let's see.
Alrighty.
Does everybody have those pulled up?
Yep.
Yeah, right here.
Okay. All right. So again, this is going to be Guinevere issue 3. There will be spoilers, so if you don't want it spoiled, tune out now. All right. So we're going to need a narrator. I guess John can be our narrator, and
Very
then
well.
exact change only can be Guinevere,
Oh, I'm lucky.
and then we're going to need a sexy succubus, so I think Mech McCheese is definitely our sexy succubus. And
I can do that.
And you should also be Elizabeth. So Elizabeth and sexy succubus, and I will be sniper, which I think are all the parts.
Do we have it in the Discord? I don't know where to pull it up at.
Oh, no, we don't. Hold on. I will send you a link, which is pretty cool. Check this out, everybody. You go, boom. Edit collaborators. And then I go, generate link. Boom. Read only. And now I'm going to send you this link. And then there you go. So I'm going over here to the Discord. And so I just sent you a link there. So if you open that in your browser, then you'll all be on the same page. Well, no, I guess you'll all be in the same script. You can be on different pages in the same script.
What witchcraft is this?
Exactly. So let me know when you get there, and we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, wait. I see. Oh, wait. My page.
What, smug showing up?
All right. I got an email that someone joined, so hopefully that was you.
That was me.
Might not be, might be something else.
Is Smug here?
He's showing green on the channel, so hopefully he'll be in.
Okay. Oh, yeah, the link is in the Discord.
Oh, yeah. I see what's going on. Okay.
All right,
Hey,
you logged in? Oh, wait. He says, okay, I'm ready.
Get in here now.
I mean, or later. It's cool either way.
Begin?
Well, we got to wait for him, right?
Oh, okay.
I mean, because if he's going to, he can't give feedback red. So.
Ha! And you say you're a producer.
There we go. All right. Now we got okay. So, Smug, you are. Do you have the pages in front of you?
No.
Okay.
I have the stream in front of me.
Okay. Well, I guess you can just watch the stream and listen. But this is Writer Duet, so it's already the script that I sent you last time. You can just go to Writer Duet and open it.
Oh yeah, I think I do have that link.
Yeah,
it's in the channel.
In the chat.
And it's also in the channel.
Yeah.
Okay, there. And I have my headphones on now.
Okay, cool. All right. So, narrator, take us away.
Page 1, panels 4. Panel 1. A caterpillar eats a leaf. The caption.
I'll read the caption.
Oh, okay.
You read the caption.
No, man. Easy. Go for it.
Life's ability to adapt and reproduce separates it from the sphere of matter. Life stronger claim on the energy that is available and better avoid the threats posed by a particular environment.
Panel 2. The caterpillar spins a cocoon.
But evolutionary forces no longer hold sway over humanity. Instead, the thinking man of the future must be guided to his new form by reason itself.
Panel 3. A butterfly emerges from the cocoon.
The harsh rules of logic must come to bear upon the design of the future vessels of reason.
Panel 4. Guinevere, dressed as we saw her in number 2, leans against the wall just outside a closed door labelled MRI Monitoring Room 2. She holds her hand to the ear nearest to the door, which glows with a faint magic.
Fix this, Doctor!
Page 2, panels 1. Panel 1. The layout of this page should mimic the page of one's tarot card, and there's a link. Elizabeth will be the central figure playing the role of the page. In her hands, she holds a large ball and stick model of a DNA molecule instead of the staff the tarot card would normally use. Sniper's concerned face and body can be partially seen from the right side of the panel. Subject's name, Valentina Hazlitt, along with a picture of her. A heart rate monitor follows the...
Those are on the display monitors. I'm sorry if
Okay,
not
so on the display monitors, subject's name, Valentina Hazlitt, along with a picture of her. A heart rate monitor follows the flow of her heart and reads 82 BPM, blood pressure 130/75. A diagram of two DNA double helixes partially superimposed over each other with the words superimposed. Comparison of hybrid helical structures. A picture of an enzyme inhibitor molecule, and there's a link to that showing a vector file with the words superimposed. Protein morphology errors detected. Another monitor shows a series of Egyptian-style hieroglyphics. And again, there's a link to hieroglyphics. Some are highlighted in a pale blue as opposed to the brown and yellow of the rest of the pattern.
You put my daughter in some bizarre machine. We came here for answers. I better start hearing some.
I hold the problem and the answer here in my hands, Mr. Huddle. Your daughter has a fascinating genetic structure. It shows powerful, wonderful promise, but also contains flaws, hence her genetic illness.
I didn't bring my daughter down here to have her put in some contraption for you to tell me what I already know.
Page 3, panels 3, panel 1. Guinevere continues to lean in and listen, her hand affixed to her ear and glowing faintly with magic.
Daughter, once this test is run, we can compare the errors in her genetic sequence. In her genetic sequence, correlate the malformed proteins and recommend a gene.
Unsure what to do. I don't have enough information to say this has to stop.
Panel 2. Guinevere walks down the hall towards a door near a glowing red exit sign. A sign to the side of the door displays the symbol of a stairway. Her amulet glows green.
Guess I'll just stop poking. Oh my God. Guess I'll just keep poking around here.
Panel 3, a large panel. Guinevere opens the industrial metal stairway door and walks into the stairwell. One stairway goes up, offering the expected concrete and metal stairs leading to an above landing. The stairs going down, however, lead to a dark spiritual reality. Each descending stair appears more earthen and volcanic. The presence of the demon subtly twists the astral nature of the room from what would normally resemble Eric's office, page 6, to be more dynamic, more demonic and hell-like. Think H.R. Geiger meets Hieronymus Bosch. Viviax, the succubus, sits on a large skull in the landing behind a facade that mocks Lucy's psychiatry booth from Peanuts. The booth appears to be made of the remnants of people, including some faces that appear alive yet frozen. Viviax peers out from beneath an awning above her head which reads, "All questions answered," in a font that suggests supernatural evil and insanity. The writing on the table in front of Viviax continues, "The succubus is in," with the in part being a flip sign like the old Lucy booth that it is spoofing. Note to the letterer, Viviax's dialogue should be represented with heavy demonic accents.
What the hell?
Hello there, Ginger. Oh, nice to finally get to meet you.
Page 4, panels 4, panel 1. Guinevere looks to the world outside the stairwell, which exists just as it did before. A nurse pushes a cart down an ordinary hospital hallway. Viviax remains seated behind her stand and beckons Guinevere to approach by crooking the little finger of her left hand. Her tongue plays over her upper lip seductively.
Listen, Miss Demoness, I
just have to save that poor dying girl. A corny motivation, but beneath it, I can sense a longing for something more. You seek knowledge and power. I provide all of that and more to those willing to pay a modest fee.
Panel 2. Guinevere stands in the doorway as she decides to return to the normal world and leave the hellscape behind, but her face betrays her ambivalence.
Your pathetic half-breed bitch will die a slow, agonizing death, all of which will be your fault for walking away.
Panel 3. Guinevere steps back into the stairwell and calls down to Viviax with a flash of anger. Viviax smiles at her from behind her booth.
You don't know that, and I ain't selling my soul to you.
Well, of course not. A mage's soul is far too valuable a thing to better barter away for something so insignificant as a little girl's life.
Panel 4. Viviax holds forth a demonic biomechanical version of an iPad. The top reads contract in an arcane font.
But I do take other forms of payment. Do close the door, dear. Hate to let the normies in.
Normies, get out.
Page 5, panels 3, panel 1, Viviax's point of view. Guinevere, unsure what to do, looks down the stairs and closes the door.
That a girl, you may approach.
Panel 2, Guinevere's point of view. The succubus sits comfortably behind her stand, appearing beautiful yet lethal. The biomechanical lair in which she sits shows the trappings of death and corruption surround her. A man's face, part of the overall desk itself, looks to Guinevere with an expression of horror that pleads for her to turn back.
I've never done anything like this before.
What a novel thing to say. It's really quite simple and straightforward. We help each other. I want something, you want something.
Panel 3, side view. Guinevere stands before Viviax, who reclines behind her stand. With a wave of her hand, a freakish malformed skull rises from the floor.
But what you want will cause people harm.
Have a seat, dear, so we can better analyze that statement. Tell me, have you any idea of what might be happening to that nice man who issued your credentials?
Page 6, panels 5, panel 1. Maxwell Faber from number 2 meekly steps from an open elevator onto the sophisticated control room, which Eric, the android, also from issue 2, uses as an office. Above the desk is the large bust of a face reminiscent of Metropolis and Prometheus. The entire office should be a strange combination of those science fiction visions, and there is a link to Metropolis, and also to Prometheus' face. Eric's desk sits brooding at the far end of a large hallway that has many displays featuring newscasts from around the world. Among these displays, 2 should show closed-circuit footage from the hospital where Elizabeth stands over Valentina and releases her from the restraints that bound her to the MRI table as Sniper looks on, a bit relieved that the ordeal is over. The display highlights Valentina, and a superimposed computer-generated line ties some strange alien identifier to her. Blood Widow having beaten White Widow, as per the variant cover. And there's a link to the red-white cover. Eric is seated in a sophisticated chair that looks like Captain Kirk's chair if it was designed by H.R. Geiger. 2 other chairs sit before his desk that have a similar aesthetic, but not the control knobs. 3 columns support the side walls of the room and come down to become structures in the room itself, as in the space jockey scene by Geiger from Alien, and there's a link to that.
Max, all right, so here let's have Smug, you read Maxwell, and McCheese, you can read Eric. So Captain Max Faber, I believe his name was.
Mr. Gilman, yeah, you wanted to speak to me?
Yes, Mr. Faber. Have a seat.
Panel 2, side view. Maxwell sits on figurative pins and needles in the uncomfortable chair before Eric's desk.
I called you here in regards to a Pentex ID badge issued to one Gwen Mordredis, which seems to have been issued to a new employee of the company. I believe this was your doing?
Panel 3, close on Max, framed opposite panel 4. Maxwell swallows nervously.
Oh, yes. Her.
Panel 4. Eric studies Max with the detached gaze of a serial killer.
Would you consider it an abuse of discretion to give a new hire high-level security clearance without having that person vetted by trust and safety?
Panel 5. Max begins to sweat as his anxiety increases.
Yes, I definitely made an error there.
Page 7, panels 4. Panel 1, Eric. Eric, still seated behind his desk, has his pocket watch open in his right hand as he coldly studies Max, similar to the dinner scene in issue 2.
This Gwen Mordredis looks to be an alias. Her personal information does not correlate with any established databases. What was the basis for your security determination?
Panel 2, Max. Max smiles nervously as he makes an innocent shrug to attempt to defuse the situation.
She, just really seemed qualified. And I don't know,
Panel 3. Metal clamps emerge from inside the chair that quickly anchor Maxwell to the chair by binding around his arms, legs, and chest.
Who does sound effects?
Snert. There. Oh, good.
What? Hey.
Panel 4. Point of view behind Max's chair. Maxwell, bound to his chair, sits in shadow as Eric stands from his desk as he snaps his pocket watch closed in his right hand. Claws emerge from his left hand. His demeanor broadcasts his disappointment.
Humans have such clear and obvious failings.
Oh God, please don't kill me.
Page 8, panel 1. This page should resemble the composition of the tarot card The Moon, which shows a disappointed face looking down on the poorly illuminated things which might frighten the reasonable mind. The line work on this page should be more surreal than realistic, to suggest a nightmare vision, vaguely remembered by a waking mind, and there's a link to a tarot card illustration. The large bust of the head, which sits over Eric's desk, will play the role of the disappointed moon. The previously mentioned wall supports should take the place of the left and right towers from the original tarot image. The wall displays continue to show news, and the one shows Sniper standing with his arm around Valentina opposite Elizabeth, who is lecturing them. Eric stands opposite of the trapped, terrified Maxwell, who struggles in vain against the bonds of the chair. He bends down over his victim to show him the razor-sharp claws of his right hand in front of Maxwell's face.
I doubt you will die from my efforts here today, Mr. Faber. I just think it's best we do something about your clumsy reproductive instincts that seem to have caused you so much trouble.
Page 9, panels 4. Panel 1, side view. Viviax rests her head in her left hand, while her right hand squeezes her right breast. Guinevere, seated across the counter from her, seems just on the edge of bolting for safety.
Yes, poor dear Max Faber. Might have to go by Maxine now, from what I hear.
What?
Oh, you really have no idea the people you're up against.
Panel 2, Guinevere's point of view. The tablet extends outward to Guinevere by way of a rogue feminine zombie arm that extends from the table. Viviax uses the palms of her hands to push her ample breasts together and interlaces her fingers over her cleavage as she awaits Guinevere's decision.
Let's strike a deal, shall we? I'll tell you everything you need to know, and in return, I get the use of your body for, 24 hours?
Panel 3, Guinevere looks down at the tablet in disgust.
The use of my body?
Possession, dear. I get so sick of being cooped up over here in the spirit realm. I want to wear a body, feel real fingers play over real breasts, and other things. Walk around and be admired. Think of the fun we could have.
What state will it be in when I get it back?
Panel 4, close of hand on tablet. Viviax's hand points to the tablet. The bold block-lettered header reads, "Contract for demonic possession," and then a ton of fine print. Where Viviax touches the template, brings up a clause which reads, "Possessor hereby promises to return control of body to possessee in an ambulatory state of roughly the same street value as before, barring incidentals such as pregnancy, tattoos, piercing, and newly acquired drug addictions."
It's all in the contract, dear. I return your body, or you get triple your money back.
Page 10, panels 3, panel 1. Guinevere looks to Viviax.
And when will I get this knowledge you promised?
As soon as you sign, dear, just tell me what it is you want to know. I've been observing humanity since they climbed down from the trees. Sadly, it's nothing but a series of dicks and holes. Although I must say, the hygiene and shaving has improved.
Panel 2. Guinevere relaxes a bit as Viviax leans forward to take her hand.
Do I gotta be specific about the things you need to tell me?
Oh, don't look at it like that. I'm not here to screw you for your knowledge. That's probably the only way I don't want to screw you, actually.
Panel 3. Viviax really turns on the charm as she waxes eloquently to Guinevere. A man's face in the column coming off the post looks on in frozen horror.
Look, we're going to be besties, okay? Every wizard has a whole host of spiritual companions, and I really want to be yours. We're going to see the world together, you and me. The places we'll go, the people we'll seduce. You'll get to keep all of that knowledge. The good, the bad, and the ugly. What do you say, girl?
Will I be conscious during it?
Oh, of course. That's half the fun. First, we'll swing by and blow that construction worker who called out at you. We'll do it right behind a nearby pizza parlor. If you get grossed out, just wander off to the back of your mind like did way back when you were a little girl.
Pizza parlor.
Oh,
Nice.
that was great.
So there you go.
Lord have mercy.
Oh, that was the 10 pages. That's a really good way to end the 10th page.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
My mouth out.
Oh man,
So there we go. What do we think?
I enjoyed it.
It's definitely it was a big improvement over the previous version.
Well, see, that's what this whole
It's funny,
process is here for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that this was. I thought this was like a new script, and then I realized that it was the same one as last time. It's like you really like tweaked a lot of things. I like the detail of the succubus. Now, her introduction being a lot more kind of comedic and tongue in cheek.
Really confident.
Hopefully it's
right,
fascinating for people who've seen the old and the new version to see just how dramatically the same basic story can be changed.
Yeah, the alterations just over like a draft, basically, or maybe a couple drafts. I don't know, because you can also tell that like you got the ideas down quick, and whenever that happens, it usually leaves a lot of typos when you're just getting the ideas, like brand new ideas fired down onto the page, and that's very common, of course, for a lot of script writing. Is you're working on getting these new ideas down on there so much that you're almost not even paying attention to the specific words, which is kind of a good thing, because then you gotta go over it later and make sure you look over the words. But
Yeah, you're not overthinking in the moment. You're just getting the idea out there.
which is very natural, but also kind of something that I think a lot of people don't realize about writers is that first sort of either a fresh redraft or a brand new draft, you're sort of you're like rocket sledding so fast that you're going, and that's why these things are also good to sort of get the fine tuning down too as we read it live. That's always good. And yeah, the first video we ever did, that one's still up. That shows the earlier draft of this exact same script, so people can go see the exact differences between that one and this one. This one has a lot of changes that make it like more kind of fun and humorous and tongue in cheek, and kind of aware of the changes that were that could be worked on, more symbolism. I noticed the beginning with wasn't that something Zombie was bringing up with the whole butterfly transformation thing?
Yeah, that was his.
It's a nice metamorphosis imagery kind of foreshadowing things to come. I haven't read Guinevere at all, so I'm just guessing here.
There are a lot of spoilers in that first reading too, and that was like a month ago at this point.
Oh, well, yeah, it was. It was a while.
I like the comedic tone it was going for while still building the tension. I'd like to know what happens next. It's got me hooked.
I think for a lot of the non-Comicsgate indie comic makers, they're sort of writers and then they draw their own or they try and get an artist. A lot of them are going from basically a first draft to print. And this Guinevere process is showing them why they must never, ever fucking do that. Never.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
no.
like the Star Wars prequels, like the Phantom Menace was clearly just a first draft. And it's like, that could have used more rewriting. And this shows, like you're right now saying, rewriting can make such a giant difference in like from your first draft to even just a second draft. A lot more ideas just in these. This is 10 pages. It's not a lot, but a lot of changes were made.
And they've got to give themselves time to do that. There's a self-imposed deadline with a lot of these new comic book writers or publishers. They seem to think there's a clock they've got to beat. The only thing they're going to beat is quality if they race to print it. They have got to rehearse it and polish it. Because there's a lot of good ideas that they tweet out, some of them, not all of them, some of them. But they all need this
Very
kind of...
few.
I try and be a bit more balanced than that. I mean, personally, a lot of it's not for me, okay? But it's probably not meant to be, so big deal. But they've got to really do this flex and reflex. They've got to, okay, maybe not do dinosaur stuff like me with post-it notes, but they've got to do something swapping around pages and scenes and ideas and chapters, because there's so much stuff you can bring out once you go back over it. This one is dramatic. If people watch the first version and this version, good Lord, it's quite a change. The succubus now is the succubus is a real character now. Like,
knowing nothing about it, I got a pretty good feel for her personality. And,
there you go.
Yeah, in the first draft, she was just kind of succubus, and now she's like a lot more quirky and playful, and there's a lot more sort of fun, almost shoehorned in with
consistent personality.
As a succubus would try to shoehorn things in, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
I think one thing you were also saying about like redrafting and taking the extra time. The way I consider it, a second draft should be mandatory for every writer. You shouldn't ever be making a first draft and being like, "There, I'm done." You should always go back, do a second draft, and train, and maybe change as much as humanly possible, at least within reason. You got to know, what needs to be changed, and what you also got to know what needs to be kept and what needs to be saved and maintained over a first draft if it's really necessary. But I think it should be completely mandatory to always give everything you write a second draft.
Especially for comics, because unless you've got a distribution contract or some sort of media contract, you don't have the same kind of deadline pressure. So there's no reason to try and rush it out for some reason. I mean, do it properly rather than quickly, if that's the choice.
Deadline pressure, then maybe you can, like say you're working for Marvel or DC, then just go ahead and fire off a first draft, throw it to your editor and be like, there, now draw it. But
they have an editor. You see, they have an editor, not that they do editing jobs anymore. But when they did do the editing jobs, they had a lot of power. And that was effectively an automatic second draft to bring it in line with Marvel method and continuity for starters.
Although the Marvel method was like almost antithetical to like even a first draft. They wouldn't even necessarily do first drafts.
I don't think I don't like the Marvel method. And when people say that's how they're writing the comic, I'm like, oh, okay, fine. And the comic might suck.
Yeah, writing comic as notes.
Yeah.
you're making the artist do the heavy lifting too, and it's like the writer should be lifting as much of the burden off of the artist, and let the artist, be able to experiment or be playful or do something on their own if they have a good idea. But the writer should sort of be trying to transfer their vision through the artist, I think. And the Marvel method is just like writing as a bunch of notes. Like they go here, do this, there. That's there. Go,
Thing happens, quirky quip, rinse, repeat.
Bendis speak goes here. Have the editor just put that in.
Just bottom text right the fuck out.
Yes.
But they don't actually edit anymore, you see. They're not really editors.
Doesn't even seem to do that. Now it's just a bunch of broads. Are they cum dumpsters? I think so.
I'm glad everybody liked the pizza parlor line. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
I noticed it.
I noticed that it doesn't particularly say whether the pizza place is popular or not. If is the pizza any good?
It's not even a good. Yeah, exactly. It's not even a good pizza place.
Not even. Well, I mean, that's kind of the ideal. You don't want to go to a popular pizza place. You want to go to the least popular one with the least traffic around.
Or maybe have a pizza delivery guy get lost, and when somebody says, "Who's that pie for anyway?" he can say, "It's for Chan."
Would it be a too on the nose to call it Little Caesars?
Well, I mean, that's natural brand. Now you got to bring in product placement. You got to call your entertainment lawyer and be like, "Hey, can we get some cash for putting Little Caesars into our comic book?"
Right.
No, but you can get sued.
What I learned is, as long as you put if you put parody in the title, anything goes.
Oh, of course.
Right, yeah.
It's not really Little Caesars. It's my original character, Little Caesars.
Right.
Cyber pizza.
Yeah. Well, no, that would actually be usable. That's not a good example. So yeah, a really interesting. Kidnap his wife.
Might possess him.
So all right, cool. So yeah, I guess everybody seemed to like them. Any notes on things to change, or is everybody pretty happy with those?
Yeah. Now I actually do want to read. Yeah, like you were saying, I want to read this comic more. Find out what happens next. Now.
Okay.
You didn't get his balls chopped or what?
Yeah. That guy that was leaving me hanging there. Castration's terrifying.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
he's in trouble.
Poor Mr. Faber.
Although, yeah, that's right. I was going to say, hey, I want to know what happens next. That's right. I already know what happens next from the first reading we did, where you spoiled the shit out of the whole series.
I'm so out of the way.
Is there like a shot of like some cherries and a glass of 7-Up or something in the next panel?
More product placement? That sounds like you're going to make a bundle on this one.
Gotta milk your million, Johnny.
Yeah. So yeah,
all right.
It's again that's a very important lesson though for any potential writer or really anyone making anything. Like even artists, a lot of artists do so many revisions just on like fan art they make for themselves. They like mirror flip it and they're like, oh, this is wonky, and then all of a sudden they're doing like selection, lasso tool, drag and drop to squish things together better. A lot of erasing. You see a lot of artists do a lot of erasing, unless they're doing the inks usually. But the revisions are a really necessary part of not just making art, but making sure it's actually good, making sure it's better. That's a big step for. It's something that it's one of the hardest ones because it's kind of painful, but it's also the most necessary.
I think when writers get defensive and don't want to do revisions and just want to finish it and get too used to arguing against people who criticize them out of a sense of self-protection to try and follow their dream, they've got to modify that attitude to be defensive of their best work rather than just defensive of their work in general.
Yeah, it's kind of an immaturity on I'm guilty of this myself in other circles, but it's like you guys were saying before, play the long game, or just take your time with it. If you're not under some sort of contractual obligation, your work can only benefit from it.
Yeah, I remember the first time I was trying writing, I would put so much work into that first draft. I would be like, well, I put all the work in already, so clearly it shouldn't need more work afterwards. And then when I started really rereading the first draft, I was like, oh no, this needs a lot more work. And I felt like kind of embarrassed. It was painful to realize how much more work I either could put in or desperately needed to put in that I wasn't even thinking about adding otherwise.
Oh yeah,
and that's usually the most painful part, is that I didn't think I needed to and realized later that I did really need to.
It just stumbles up on you. Yeah.
I think constructive criticism is about how you communicate your idea, and most destructive criticism is attacking your idea itself, or just out of jealousy that you've had an idea and they haven't. So as long as you can tell the difference, listen to criticism.
Yeah, and that can be really tricky, because destructive criticism just makes you think, well, I did it right in the first way, so clearly I'm not doing anything wrong, and then you're really kind of handicapping yourself. Really, I think it's just best to learn how to be your own. You don't have to be your harshest critic, but you have to, consider it and, think about it in a lot of ways where just to be able to critically and analyze what you've written, so that you can fix the things that need to be fixed, but you also need to know how to keep the things that need to be kept.
Yeah, and I think you get that with time. It just comes with, being emotionally mature about it, to understand, like, okay, I messed up here, or okay, there's some typos there that were obvious, should have fixed that, or why is this person doing this? This makes no sense. So yeah, and to not take things personally, because your work's your baby, but it can always be fixed. So
yeah, it is something that it takes time. It's something that you just kind of gradually get used to as time goes on.
Right.
But I think this version is it's good. I like the pace now, and it's got beats. Now it's got beats. Before it didn't seem to have beats, and I didn't think you were doing a slow burn like I was trying to do. So I figured it was just an early draft. But now definitely it engages. It's interesting how the emphasis has really altered too. Before it seemed to be getting to that corridor scene, and I sort of wondered why. Whereas now it's much more personal, and the risk to Guinevere, the partnership, it explains more about what a magician is in this world as well, which I appreciated. That was good. It puts them in context much better. Contextualization really works now.
Yeah. Like I also looked the first time, that first draft, I didn't know that the succubus had any plans to give her body back. Now there's
right.
It plays out as a joke in a way, and there's actually some decent joking around about like this contract and these weird the weird fine print and stuff. It plays so much better, and it also informs the audience better of what's going to happen.
And it's going to look great because you got the corpse furniture. That's going to look great.
Yeah,
that's really going to look good.
Yeah. Yeah, because it plays into it's sort of a bit comedic, but also horror, and in a way, it's like what a demon would find funny too. And
I thought that. Yeah.
And like how she's mocking humanity, but then her office is like stuff from human pop culture, which is
a nice Peanuts reference.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, guess we're done here then.
Yeah, that'll wrap it up, I think.
Just as Adam Friendeds turned up to give us his sage advice.
Oh, Adam, he's well. Adam is welcome to come to Writers Group. All writers are welcome.
What's a protagonist? That's a funny word. Lol.
Lol.
Okay.
Yeah. Any writer who wants to get critical analysis on their scripts, on their comic scripts or whatever, 10 pages. Every Wednesday, that's basically the plan for this group here.
Yeah, this is written and quartered.
Yeah, written and quartered. That's actually maybe that's finally we finally came up with a good title for the segment, written and quartered. I think I might.
Well, but that aligns us with Parallel Universe Comicsgate version 2, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The totally not Comicsgate that actually is Comicsgate.
Comicsgate 2.0A.
Alpha.
Version
Yeah.
1.2.
Yeah.
Wants to present
Version
next
2,
week.
1.2 of Comicsgate 2.8.
Still waiting for
I
the next
think I can
patch.
have. I think I can have pages 11 through 20, which will be the rough draft, first draft of this comic ready by next Wednesday. Who else wants to present?
Did somebody else have a script they planned to?
I think Mecha McCheese is working on something.
Oh yeah, that's a prototype.
Okay.
So
If anyone's not ready by next week, I mean, I have other scripts I could bring.
Okay.
All I've got's a storyboard, but I can scan it in if you want to.
Well,
Yeah,
Mecha McCheese, are you committing to have pages ready by next Wednesday?
I'll let you know beginning of next week.
Okay.
I can't commit
Just
right
do
now.
it.
So I guess
Just do
that'll be
it.
a no.
I mean,
I can't commit right now.
All right, fair enough. Well, I will have pages. I'm committing. I will have pages ready by next Wednesday. So, and whoever else wants to.
It's gonna be.
Adam Friended asks, why not use a service like Blacklist?
Is that a service?
I don't like Blacklist at all. Like, quite
Ditto.
frankly. And
What is
and
that?
I don't know that Blacklist is a place where you can go and you can pay a monthly fee and you can put up a screenplay. And I don't think they look at comics. And basically, you'll get notes on it.
Deadlinejunkies.com is my writer's lab, he adds.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I'm doing it this way, so, which is how we used to do it back at Venice Beach. So.
Why suggest random anonymous websites when there are people right here who, despite not even liking him, are prepared to let him in the bullpen and throw ball? Why not
with actual criticism, actual critical analysis, instead of just being now we're going to dogpile you. Now this is you walked into a tribunal.
We're all being nice today. This.
Yeah. No, but I mean checklists and script doctoring is not the same thing as what we're doing here at all.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like when you look at like the Blacklist, first off, the format is you have to have finished like the entire work.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's committed to 10 pages, and I think that's more digestible for a writer, particularly like we had Exact Change on tonight, and he had a novel, but 10 pages is small enough that okay, if I give you a will, well, yeah, I could do that. Whereas finishing a screenplay and then getting notes back, and the notes back are, I think, less specific, and also, in my opinion, there's something magical about hearing a page read aloud. And you don't get that from Blacklist or whatnot. You're going to get back notes on your script, but they're usually not page by. And
this is a lot more. When you've got someone with a real talent, and not necessarily somebody who thinks they're a real talent, but a real talent for voice acting, this is how you go back over, or how Ben Stiller does it with recognized comedians that he trusts. Whole pages of dialogue, they just go on the floor. Because Vince Vaughn or Owen Wilson or whoever have got their own beat, they've got their own way to ad-lib, Robert Downey Jr. This is just a very low-level version of the same kind of thing. Sometimes when you've written things to be read or voice acted, they don't land properly once you hear them read aloud. You can see the thought wasn't fully formed in your mind when you wrote the dialogue, and you need to go back. This is how Blackadder was written, what we're doing now. This was the process for Blackadder. And they were actually very harsh to each other, very traumatic to each other because of the egos, because they'd all come off successful live comedy careers. So this is a much stronger test, I think. And it shows real bravery for anybody to expose their script here, to me. And it's free, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, there's no monthly fee on this show.
But also, Blacklist or any of them, there isn't the same alchemy that we're getting here. There isn't the same energy.
Yeah.
There isn't. There was one agency which offered script review and doctoring, and I used them for about 3 months. It just went nowhere. But I paid the full ticket. Never had before in my life. I had literary agents years ago two literary agents years and years and years ago when I was a teenager and in my 20s when I first started selling stories. But I thought it might be like that. But really, they come back with stuff like, oh, that's not in a standard format, and you need to indent that 6 and stuff like that. Well, I don't really give shit one about a script in those terms when I'm having the content of the script reviewed. And then it was stuff like, peripatetic isn't a word. Yes, it is. It absolutely is a word. It may not be a word you think works in the script, but is that what you're saying, or are you just saying it's literally not a word? And so I just think if you're going to spend a lot of bread and you get that level of notes back, that's not very useful at all. And I think this is a better training. No training matches reality, but this is a better training for pitching and for writing quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, having other actual writers talk about the writing aspect of writing.
With different styles and backgrounds too. Very, very different styles and backgrounds.
And people who are looking to do stuff that's actually original instead of sort of the same old derivative, like run-of-the-mill, like a superhero. It's some superheroes, or it's a horror comic with it's got scary monsters, that kind of. There's people here looking to actually create like the next level of comics, and that's something you will never find anywhere else on YouTube.
Not that I've seen.
Period.
Not that I've seen. No.
Well, I think not at all, but also not what we've seen.
Well, and Antonio Bryce, the people doing Oddity, the real Comicsgate frog, the Oddity creature from the swamp.
Creepy.
Are somewhat more original than anything else in Comicsgate, for sure.
But that's still pretty derivative, though, isn't it?
But in the end, it still really is Swamp Thing, Man Thing, Weird West role-playing game,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Derivative.
A lot of derivative.
I think Preston's Guinevere is
a derivative.
Preston's Guinevere really is like a Brian Pulido comic, only with a plot. So,
which is a nice little boost up.
I mean, if you have a plot in your story, that's a bonus right there. I mean, you're
apparently it is for American comics at the moment. Yeah.
Anyways, so next Wednesday. I always want to say I want to be on these, but I don't know if I'll ever be away. I just woke up like an hour ago, so it's like I was able to jump in at the end at least.
That's an amazing sleep schedule.
Smoking crack.
I don't think crack would even help at this point. It would just make it even worse.
Okay, we'll stop drinking yourself into unconsciousness.
I wish I was drinking more. Drinking more actually might help. If
that's the full-blown alcohol.
Yes, that's I need $75,000 to increase my alcoholism.
Exactly. All right. Well, next Wednesday then, I will see everybody then, and I'll have more pages of Guinevere issue 3. So,
and I'll be able to fill in if anyone needs it. Bye.
Alrighty. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.
See you guys.
See ya.